So thank you, BMM. Thank you, Robert Reyes, for inviting me, and thanks, Heather, for helping us along throughout this whole thing. And thank you, Matt Wilson, for this shirt that he drove over to me as soon as his session stopped. So he shared a shirt with me today. Appreciate everybody joining, obviously. We're going to talk a little bit about the pandemic itself, and I'll try to stay away from culture a little bit because I think everybody covered culture pretty heavily, but obviously we'll touch on it a little bit because it's a huge part of what we do here at AGS. Just make my slides long. Laura Olson Reyes actually has a great sense of humor, as you can see here on this first slide. But we talk about, you know, in March, things got real, and they got real really fast, right? We actually had an employee start the other day, Brad Boyer, he just joined the company, and he said, oh, I was watching a town hall from the end of the year. So sometime, I think it was back in maybe November, December of last year. And we commented on, we commented on the town hall how COVID likely will have some effect on our operations and our organization, but it's unknown. We didn't know how much of an effect it would have on us. But he sort of sent me a text. He said, hey, that was pretty early in the game that we mentioned it. Obviously by March, we had just wrapped up, I think we had just wrapped up one of our earnings calls, and we got hit pretty hard, as you see here on the slide. More and more cases confirmed in the US. Travel ban accelerated. As we all know, I think the president blocked inbound flights from China. People began to really understand how contagious it was. I remember at some point I was at lunch with a coworker, and she had said, geez, why are you so concerned about COVID? I mean, it's just in Washington right now, right? It's no big deal. It's just in Washington. And I said, well, it was in China. It's now in Washington. It's all over the globe. It's ravaging like Italy. There's no reason that we're going to be immune to it here in the United States, and in particular in the gaming industry. So I had some concerns early on, and of course, unfortunately, that all came to fruition. Then, of course, lockdown started, stay-at-home orders, shelter-in-place type mandates happened, and then this is where the emoji comes in that Laura, I'll say Laura plopped it down on this slide. I don't know if that's okay to say, but she plopped it down on this slide. That's where the poop emoji comes in, because casinos basically closed. They began to close in March, but over a short period of time, they really were closed just about everywhere. And again, we're attributing this to Winston Churchill, but maybe this is just a Laura quote again. If you're going through hell, keep going. And I think it's an interesting quote we chose here, because in the end, it really was our only option. We couldn't turn around, we couldn't go the other way. So as much as we didn't like, you know, the circumstances, we had to embrace it, and we had to adapt and pivot very quickly, which our team as a whole did very well. And when I say the team, I don't mean the executive team. I mean, the entire organization really did a great job of pivoting early on, trying to just clamp down on expenses, you know, exercise the thought process of what can we do? How can we make things better? And so our immediate focus was, as everything began to hit us, was to keep our employees, customers, and partners safe. And those are the obvious things. Pretty quickly, we sent everybody home that could go home. And then eventually just about everybody was working from home at some point. And of course, we followed all the national, state, local type mandates and protocols. Our goal was to reduce the virus spread, and I could say within the company, but on our town halls, which we were doing monthly, and in our communications, we felt like it was our job to make sure that we did our part. And I know it might sound a little corny, little motherhood and apple pie-ish, but we felt like as an organization, we had 700 plus employees. Then we have spouses, children, extended families. So there's really thousands that are attached to the AGS unit. And we just felt like doing our part and really trying to prevent the spread, locking down, trying to encourage people to stay at home, even though they weren't, working. Of course, they were working from home, but also to stay at home was sort of a big piece of what our mantra and what our communication was over those months. Big part of it was staying connected to our team. And so how did we do that? There's a couple folks I know on the call. Julia Boguslavsky is our CMO. And then Laura Olson-Reyes is our VP of marketing, but she really has a big focus on communications. And between Laura and Julia and actually our head of HR, Kim Nasuda, we were essentially putting out weekly or more than weekly communications to the team. Everyone was sitting at home. They're working from home. So a weekly written communication and then a monthly town hall. So to date, I think, and we have one tomorrow, I think that'll be perhaps our 8th town hall that we've conducted since COVID. So we actually did some more than once a month, but our goal was to make sure that our employees were not at home going just bonkers, going bananas, trying to figure out, hey, what is the story at AGS today? Are we open? Are the customers opening? Have any customers reopened? Are more customers closing their doors of the casinos? So the only perhaps reliable source of information they had was from our written communications and our town halls, because there was so much rumor in the industry. Business continuity was very important. There was actually a point, obviously, for a lot of companies, we did things financially and we did things internally. And for us, it was to preserve cash flow. We actually drew on a revolver, raised some other money to make sure that we had continuity going forward for the long haul. Good news is we didn't really use or touch all or even most of that money. So things went a little bit better than expected during the downturn during the pandemic. Continue to innovate. This was as we did, and I didn't hear all of the presentations, but we did furlough employees. We did conduct some layoffs. And so that's a huge impact on culture. Once you start essentially laying folks off or furloughing employees, you run the risk of losing others. And so for us, what we really focused on, again, everybody used the word, was protect our culture. So we wanted to make sure we protected innovation and our culture. Our culture is everybody, right? And innovation is essentially our development of our products. We didn't want to power down R&D in those days. And we wanted to make sure that we could hold on to our very best talent in that department. So that was one of our biggest things that we were focusing on. And then, of course, like I said, protecting the culture was very important. And, we obviously had to take many steps to do that. You see here on this slide 5, that's working from home. That's actually a picture of me with the headphones on there. So that's when I had more hair. You probably don't recognize me. But so we temporarily closed most of our campuses, here it said, and there was actually a point in time where even where everyone was shut down, Oklahoma, Atlanta, Israel, Sydney, there's a point in time, a brief period where nobody worked from the office and we were just on complete lockdown. Shortly thereafter, we made sure that we could platoon our folks in the R&D offices so they could come in and get work done. So we didn't call it A and B groups, but we sort of had A and B groups that were working, and they were, one group might be in 1 week and another group might be in the next week, and not precisely that way, but we made sure that we could have fewer people in the office be successful in what we were trying to accomplish in our game development, continue to innovate, but not put people at risk. And we did, I think, you know, credit to, again, to our HR VP, Kim, you know, in office positives and transmissions, to my knowledge, was zero. So that was a big win and a great job by her. Partnering with our customers as they close their properties, and this was just doing whatever we could whenever we can, and so we had folks working from home. A lot of customers said, "Hey, we need help with something on site." You know, we had sent everybody home. We had furloughed people. We'd have to pull them off furlough. A lot of special circumstances that we sort of enacted to make sure that we could service our customers in any way, shape, or form across the board. Adapting quickly to communicating with our employees, customers, and all stakeholders. So obviously that was shareholders are in there, you know, folks that hold our debt, our employees, and our customers. It was probably one of the most interesting times that I've had in my career, as we were all in the industry. Many people were taking pay cuts, including ourselves here at AGS. But I think with no business, and you know, none of our machines turned on, and none of our table games earning revenue, only online was active. It was the hardest our team had really ever worked, with maybe the exception of pre-IPO, before we IPO'd the company. It was the hardest the team had ever worked, and we were generating largely zero revenue at the time. So it was very interesting times. We had to adapt quickly to everything that was going on. And again, our team did a fantastic job of making sure that, you know, business continuity was there, and that we're getting everything done that needed to get done, even as we were sort of powering down the organization. And then it says here, pivot our focus to the vitality and recovery of our company and the industry. And that really just comes down to, hey, how do we make sure that when the casinos open back up, how can we be here for our customers on time, not be late to the dance, and make sure that we're ready to rock as soon as they started opening casinos. And we, it was interesting, as we did furlough folks, and some folks did get laid off. Some folks were working part-time. Every single day since the pandemic began, we had a team that met at 4:30 or 5 o'clock every single day. We sort of called it a wind-up meeting for the day. We're all working from home. We're all going a little stir crazy. We're on Teams meetings or Zoom meetings, much like this. And what was that end of day call? It was touch base, gather information. And as casinos began to start opening, literally it was employee by employee powering back up the organization and bringing things back online. So it says, you know, we talk about here, as casino closures increased, and it was interesting. I think when in the very beginning, we kept a tally of how many casinos were closed. And I think there was a point where I sent out a message and I said, can we just see a list of how many casinos are still open? Because the accumulation of closed casinos was so fast that it really came down to how many casinos were really open. So it says here, you know, our focus really was our people, our balance sheet, expenses, our work environment. And honestly, this was something, and, you know, Matt was on earlier. I was speaking to Matt a number of times during the pandemic, Andrew a couple of times as well. Uncharted waters for everybody. You know, many people use the term unprecedented, you know, situation here in the United States and globally. So it certainly was unprecedented, but as leaders, I've been in gaming for, I think, 22 years. I've been an executive for a good chunk of that. But in the end, none of us were prepared for this. There was no way to prepare yourself, whether you went to UNLV, where I did, and you went to a school that's almost as good, Harvard. You were not prepared for what happened when the pandemic hit. it seems like we would talk about things, acts of God's, pandemic, floods, things like that for continuity for companies. And I know I've been through this at Shuffle, at GCA, and here at AGS, but nothing had ever happened. So this was something that was brand new and fresh, and we had to work through all these things. Obviously for us, our people were number one. A very close second was our balance sheet. That comes down to business continuity. Expenses are related to that. And of course, our work environment was very important. We tried to make people as comfortable as they can working from home. We talk about culture and how important it is to us. This is our marketing team throwing together our sort of accomplishments as a company here, whether it's Glassdoor, best places to work, best and brightest in the nation, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And then in Atlanta, same thing, 17 through 20. I honestly don't know how they even conducted the best and brightest awards for 2020, as difficult as it was for everyone in the nation, but they did. And once again, we made the list, and that's, for us, when it comes down to culture, we focus on our team and we focus on our people, but as our team members on the phone, and even Andrew, who used to work here, this is not an executive thing. This is our people thing. So when we say best and brightest companies to work for, we can throw around the culture word, and we can say as executives we had a vision, and we can pretend that somehow we're the straw that stirs the drink. But the reality is that it's the entire organization. It's all 700 to 800 employees in the organization that not only make the culture, but are the ones that answer the surveys when they say, is this a great place to work? And therefore we see some of these Glassdoor and Best and Brightest awards. So that said, our employees really do a great job, but I will say, again, I don't know that our HR team is on the phone, but HR and marketing are really the ones that are constantly keeping their arms around the organization and reporting back to myself and others when there's problems, because it doesn't matter how great your culture is or really how bad it is. There's problems all the time. There's certainly no such thing as a perfect culture. So the pandemic focus, protect our culture. We talked about that. Virtual and frequent town halls. I'll say I'm actually speaking to the computer now, as you can see. I don't know how to run Zoom, so I can't see myself even in the window here. I only see the presentation, and I see Heather's name up there. So I'm getting a little more comfortable, although not, I don't have mastery of speaking to a computer where there's no audience in front of me. I like audience feedback. So the first, actually the first town hall, and it says we've done 9 in the last 8 months here, so I was off by 1. But the first town hall, I think it was horrible. I was terrible, and I felt like I was talking to a screen. Over time, I feel like I got more comfortable with it, but even that comfort was meaningful to employees because they want to hear our voices, they want to see our faces, they want to know what's going on in the organization. And if I'm talking to a dead screen and I'm not doing it well, then I'm not doing my job. So again, our team really helped me with that along the way as well. The weekly communications with our employees that were active and on furlough were really important. One of the things that we did that was I don't think it was a difficult decision, but at some point some folks thought it would be challenging, was we actually did town halls for our furloughed employees. Now, furloughs, a fancy term for you still have health benefits, but you've been essentially laid off. So you're still an employee of the company, but you're at home and you're not collecting a paycheck. Your benefits are paid for by the company. So we actually conducted town halls with our furloughed employees, and quite honestly, in the end, those town halls were more interactive, as you kind of might imagine, but more positive and more appreciated than even our regular town halls, because the folks that were on furlough were really starving for information along the way. Communications, we did company and industry updates on everything that we put out. And you might see here, you know, sometimes it was daily communications, and we use email, we use Microsoft Teams, and we use something called Yammer, which I believe is a Microsoft product as well. And what we encouraged, and I think some of the others might have commented on it, what we encouraged was everyone that was working to not only look for these communications, not only give us feedback on communications, but also attempt to reach out to your coworkers. Again, I said earlier, we want to make sure folks aren't at home going a little bananas or crazy. What is important is for one another to reach out and really be part of the AGS community. Again, we can use the culture word a lot, but making sure people feel like they're still part of the organization. They're at home and they're pounding out their work on their computer. They're getting things done. And quite honestly, I was impressed with how efficient everyone was working from home. But in the end, they still need to feel like they're part of something without seeing faces, going to lunch, sitting next to somebody in a cubicle in an office or anything of the like. So those were some of the things that we really tried to push forward as an agenda. We also had COVID-19 Resource Center on SharePoint. I will admit I never accessed the SharePoint COVID-19 Resource Center because I was probably online every day looking at all that stuff myself and looking at numbers all the time, trying to wonder which direction the virus was going and how things would sort of calm down and recover over time. One of the things that we continued to do was focus on education, diversity, and support. Again, too bad all our folks aren't on. You know, I'm going to give a shout out to one of our guys in particular, Adam Whitehurst. He's our head of sales in the organization, head of slot sales. And what Adam had, when we talk about education, he's actually responsible with some other folks on the team for Compete to Create, along with a guy named Mike McKiskey. They're responsible for pushing forward this Compete to Create agenda. No time to really go through what Compete to Create is all about, but you can see on here as an icon, it says high performance mindset. We actually go through it now as an executive team, but Adam and Mike and others really pushed forward an education with our sales team. We kept them employed. They didn't get furloughed. They stayed on as a part of the team, and it wasn't vacation. These guys were on every day on Teams, on Zoom, communicating on phone calls, and really just sharpening the sword every day to try to get better at not just selling and not just engagement with the customers or staying connected, but just trying to be better as themselves and being more focused as we would exit the pandemic. What would their mindset be when that happened? And really kudos to our sales team for driving not just education within sales, but right through the organization and into the executive team itself. You'll see here that it says we launched Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. This is really an important thing to myself and many others in the organization. One of the things, we think that diversity and inclusion is important. I will say that myself and some others, we don't believe in necessarily advertising it, although I'm mentioning it right here on this. We don't believe in advertising it, but we believe in action. And we believe in being out there in the community and getting things done. So those that volunteered for our diversity task force, they did hear from us, and I made sure, at least from my perspective, that they understood this isn't a feel-good event. This is something that you're gonna go out, you're gonna roll up your sleeves, you're gonna get your hands dirty, you're going to mentor people, you're gonna work in the community, getting things done, getting things accomplished. So that's one of the big things that we focused on. I talked about the sales and executive training and how it's like keeping things sharp there. Executive development, Compete to Create. Again, I'll admit I'm not a huge fan of the program, only because I'm a 49er fan, and Pete Carroll, the coach of the Seahawks, I have to hear his voice every time I listen into Compete to Create. Other than that, it's a fantastic training program. Webinars featuring external experts, I'll sort of call out specifically here. And you see a picture on the slide of Cindy Kaiser Murphy. She was the former president and COO of New York, New York. She was also, perhaps even more importantly than being the boss at New York, New York, she was the head of all HR. So absolute expert in HR, diversity, inclusion, many things. A lot of buzzwords that we use now that weren't very popular until the last 3 or 4 years. Cindy was making them part of MGM culture in 1994. So I just want to make sure everyone heard that right. It's not 2004 or 2014. In 1994, Cindy was way ahead of the curve, and probably one of the reasons why she became president and COO of New York, New York, was that she always has been ahead of the curve. As I had said, and I've said many times, if there was sort of a Mount Rushmore of HR, she'd be on it. But maybe now, as I had said on a recent call, maybe she'd just be on the Mount Rushmore of gaming here in Vegas when the time comes. So those webinars were great for a number of educational purposes, keeping people informed, bringing folks on, and really familiarizing themselves with a number of things that we were working on. But fitness, health, and stress management was a big part of what we wanted to stay focused on. Not everybody thinks about fitness, health, and stress management every day. It's near and dear to a number of us on the executive team and in our management ranks. But we wanted that to be something that the entire team could adapt, so that we didn't sit home and get depressed individually, collectively, or as an organization. And then, of course, our book club for AGS Women's Rise Group, which is, it's called the Rise Group, and it's sort of been building some momentum here over the past few months. Pandemic challenge, continuing our innovation. You'll see here just a couple of quick hitters for everyone. On the right-hand side, you see Starwall. We've actually released it just before the pandemic, and now we're continuing to roll out the product. It's doing fantastic. Our Curve product, and this is sort of, you'll see this Rake and Bacon Deluxe is sort of our premium Curve product, and that also has been released of late. And then something that's a little different for us, you'll see this Visideal Shield. Yeah, many people in the industry, but what we did is we partnered with someone in the industry so we could use our contacts and our sales channel to get out there, and we were selling something, but what we felt was it would be great for us to be out there and make sure that we can stay in touch with our partners, our casinos, and offer them a product that can help keep their tables open. As I know we have many regulators on the line here today, there were some regulatory conditions and restrictions for folks to open back up. So this was innovation, and just being creative and finding a way to serve and work with our customers was very important for us. And with that, there you go. Keep calm and carry on. A little bit more of the Laura influence there, making sure that even as we wrap this up, we don't forget to stay calm. Appreciate everybody today.